Welcome to the GSMC Car Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey to the automotive world. We talk about the latest news, from new makes and models to new technology to all of the must-have options available. Whether you're a fan of the old classics, love the latest models and technology, or have never met a vehicle you didn't want to work on, the GSMC Car Podcast has something for every car enthusiast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Car Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, David Lucy Mabel. All right, today, folks, we are going to be talking about perhaps the hottest, most exciting new electric vehicle that has just been announced on the market from any company across the world. And that would be the 2021 Hummer or GMC Hummer EV. Sorry, because Hummer used to be its own brand. And so I tend to want to say Hummer, but actually the Hummer is back, but it's coming back as a model from GMC because, as you all know, those who are privy to the car community, before Hummer was dead, Hummer was purchased by GM in 1998 from AM General that used to manufacture Hummer. And from 1998 to 2010, for the last 12 years of Hummer's existence, it was a GM product. So Hummer has been owned by GM and then went dormant since 2010 and has been brought back not as its own brand, but as a model of the GMC brand. So get this, folks. This is amazing. You all know me. I'm a traditionalist. I don't really care for electric vehicles. I like engines. I like engine noises. I like displacement. I like cylinders. I like all of the, traditional engine, traditional car things. Like, I don't care for electric vehicles. And you know me, I'm the type of person, I like luxury cars. I like big American luxury cars. Those are my favorite sorts of cars. This is not a big American luxury car, and this is not a car with an internal combustion engine. This is, quite frankly, the exact opposite of what I would be into. It's large, it's a truck, it's off-roady, and it's 100% electric, no emissions whatsoever. So this is totally not my sort of vehicle. But, folks, let me just indulge you for a second. If I am going to buy an electric vehicle, it is going to be a GMC Hummer EV. I tell you, the Hummer is back, y'all. I didn't care for the Hummer when it was around. The H1 was militaristic. It was too large. It was ludicrous. I mean, nobody needed a Hummer H1. Like, that's crazy. H2 wasn't crazy enough. And H3 was reasonable, but H3 wasn't really a real Hummer, if you know what I mean. But, like, the Hummer is back, and it's back in its purest form, if I could put it that way. So, it's gone after an 11-year absence. And the reason why I say 11-year absence is because it's going to come out in 2021. So by 2021, 2010 would have been 11 years ago. Right now, it's a 10-year absence. No longer its own brand, but a model of GMC, like I told you. It's marketed now as the world's first all-electric supertruck. I did not know that super trucks were a thing. And frankly, dare I say that super trucks were not a thing before this. So this is a super truck. That's what GM is marketing it as. And I think that's very smart for GM, but you'll end up figuring that out in the next segments. According to GMC's website, they have available crab walk on the GM or the GMC Hummer EV. Now, what is available crab walk, you all may ask? It allows the Hummer to drive diagonally at low speeds. Because get this, the new Hummer EV is going to have four-wheel steering. What other vehicle do we know of that had four-wheel steering? The only other vehicle that I know of that was an off-road vehicle that had four-wheel steering is the Jeep Hurricane, and the Jeep Hurricane is a concept vehicle. It never actually made it to production, but maybe Jeep might want to bring it out in order to combat this GMC Hummer supertruck or whatever they're going to call it. I mean, like, maybe that might be a good idea, but four-wheel steering is going to allow it to drive diagonally at low speeds. What exactly does that accomplish? I have no earthly clue, but it's cool. And it's interesting. And is it going to get it to sell? Absolutely. So, moving on. There is available extract mode. It's able to lift the suspension up by approximately 6 inches. So the extract mode is if basically you're stuck somewhere and you need to be extracted. So it's going to prevent you from scratching the underbody, which you'll soon find that won't really be a problem after you figure out what else this thing has. But it allows it to go over boulders, ford water. Yes, we're talking about water in an electric vehicle here, folks. I was wondering if it was going to be able to ford water, and apparently so. It will be able to, so that's something I'm super excited for. And it has available ultra vision, which means that it has underbody cameras, I guess, to help you watch the trail whenever you're off-road. This thing was born and bred to off-road. I mean, this is not your pickup truck that you're going to be hauling your motorhome in. This is your pickup truck that you're going to be off-roading in. This is more like a Jeep than it is like an F-150, if I could put it that way. There is a GM estimated 350-mile range. That is for the top of the line model, but nonetheless, 350-mile range. Now, I know that's not crazy, because I know in my Buick Park Avenue, if I fill it up with gas, I can get a good 370 miles out of it. But, hey, you know what? As far as electric vehicles go, that ain't bad at all. And let me tell you why it ain't bad at all. Because with a gas car, when you fill it up, I mean, yeah, you know, the average gas car might be able to get you 300, 350 miles. So, like, the fact that an electric vehicle that you can charge is getting you 350 miles, I mean, you're basically near the level of practicality as a gas car. And like, it sounds like I'm vouching for electric vehicles here. Like, trust me, I really don't care for electric vehicles, but like, I'm also realistic in knowing that these are the changing times. These are the changing times in the sense that gas cars will be soon facing real competition from electric cars. I mean, electric cars have been around for almost as long as gas cars have been, and they really haven't been able to be competitive due to the fact that their range has always been limited. But if you can now create an electric car with the same range as a car with a full tank of gas, hey, you know what? There's not really a reason why for you to not buy the electric car anymore, at least not a legitimate reason why. And of all things, it might even be better for you to buy the electric car. You save money on fuel, it's better for the environment, and it's going to be more reliable because it has less moving parts. So, I mean, these are win-win-win situations over here. I mean, like, you know, GM, if this thing is successful, GM might convert me over to the EV crowd. I mean, they just might. But with that 100 miles of range, did you know that you can charge about 100 miles of range in 10 minutes? So that's about 10 miles a minute. So let's say if you've got the GM Hummer EV Edition 1. That is the one that has a 350 plus mile range. So you're talking about, 35 minutes to charge it up fully. I mean, that takes longer than a gas car, but it's not atrociously long that you have to park it and then you have to plan it. I mean, like, if you're taking a road trip, you can stop for 35 minutes, charge up your Hummer. I mean, go and see the sights while it's charging, or go and use the restroom, grab something to eat. I mean, 35 minutes is not a grievous amount of time for you to fully charge something. I mean, you can't charge your iPhone in 35 minutes, yet people wait around and wait until their iPhone is charged. So, like, if you can charge your Hummer EV in 35 minutes, man, what more can you want? What more can you ask? I mean, these are seriously the best numbers of any electric car that I have ever seen. And trust me, folks, I have done my research on electric cars just so I can know if my hate for them is justified. And right now, because these numbers are so good, I'm beginning to challenge myself. I'm not sure if my hate for electric cars is so much justified anymore. So, moving on. The top of the line Hummer EV comes with 1,000 horsepower. That's not the amazing number, though. It has an astonishing, get this, you have to sit down for this, 11,500 pound-feet of torque. What are you going to do with all that torque? That is astonishing. That is ludicrous. That is, I swear to God, I don't even know. What are you going to do with 11,500 feet of torque? I've got like 240 pound-feet of torque in my Buick, and I think that puts me back in my seat. Imagine 11,500 feet of torque. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm going to rant about this for a little. I don't understand. Like, these are not numbers that we have seen ever before in the car community. I mean, the most torque monster cars were probably the steam cars back in the day. I mean, they weren't very powerful, but boy, could they pull. They had lots of torque. And the most torque monstery cars you have today are probably, honestly, you probably get your diesel trucks. I mean, those are probably the ones with the most torque, but they cannot lay a claim to 11,500 pound-feet of torque. That's insane. I mean, like, imagine driving that thing. You press the accelerator on that, goodness, holy smokes, you might be forced into your seat. They might have to pry you out. I mean, this is unnatural. It's like when steam trains were first coming out, when locomotives were first coming out, goodness, they were like, oh, this is going to have effects on the human body. People are not designed to go 50 miles per hour. Man, people ain't designed to handle 11,500 feet of torque. My goodness. I mean, like, that is insane. I can't wait to ride in one of these one day or test drive it if I'm able to. I mean, like, I don't even know how that's even possible. But anyway, moving on. There's an infinity roof. Now, this is standard across all models of the Hummer EV. It's basically just a fancy term for their removable roof panels. There's an I-bar that they are all mounted on. Right? That's not a T-bar. That's an I-bar. So it's like covers the back half of the vehicle, and the first half of the vehicle has one panel that stretches across both seats. It's really nice. It's really cool. But honestly, we've seen vehicles with removable roofs anymore. I mean, look at Jeep. So that's not that interesting. There's available SuperCruise. Now, you've heard this from Doug DeMuro, assuming that you listen to him, that he believes that SuperCruise from Cadillac is the best autonomous driving system in the car community today, even better than Tesla. So, because GM makes Cadillac, GM also makes the new Hummer, they're going to put Cadillac SuperCruise technology in the new Hummer. So SuperCruise is a hands-free driving program with automatic lane changing on compatible roads. And according to this, there is over 200,000 miles worth of compatible roads. So you can basically have your Hummer drive itself, just like you could have your newest and latest Cadillac drive itself, providing that it's equipped with SuperCruise. Not all of them will come equipped with SuperCruise. The more expensive ones obviously will come equipped with it. So not only can this thing off-road, not only is it all electric, not only is it insane, but it can also drive itself. This is the future, folks. The future is here. Welcome to the future. I mean, GM is no longer slacking. GM is no longer slacking. Now I can tell you that GM is leading in this segment. Once this thing hits the market, I mean, Tesla Tesla, you may start packing your bags, buddy. I mean, like Elon Musk, start packing your bags, because I don't think Tesla's Cybertruck is going to be able to hold up to it. And you'll hear about that in the next segment. So, besides the fact they've got four-wheel steering, there's full underbody armor for extreme off-roading capability. That's right. The underbody of this car is sealed with thick armor plates so that you don't damage any electrical components while you are off-roading. It's armored too. I mean, what more do you want? It's armored. It's electric. It drives itself. It's insane. It's this. It's that. It's everything that you could ever possibly want in the perfect pickup truck, in the perfect off-roading vehicle. And, get this, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Just 15 years ago, Ferraris didn't even do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Lamborghinis didn't even do that. They are just now beginning to crack the 3-second range. Now you can get it in an off-roading vehicle. Just mull on that for a second. In the next segment, folks, we are going to be discussing the competition, which the main competition, you could probably already guess what it is, but I'm not going to tell you. Wait until the next segment. But please enjoy the break.
Are you a business owner? Someone interested in the latest news that might affect your business? Then check out the GSMC Business News Podcast, a show dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning business, technology, and the stock market. Get a head start on the day as we keep you updated on the latest goings-on Wall Street, money, jobs, and technology. The GSMC Business News Podcast has you covered.
Alrighty, folks, welcome back. So, in the last segment, we discussed that the Hummer EV, or the Hummer, is back. It's back as a model of GMC called the GMC Hummer EV. It's back. We discussed some of the specs. We discussed some of the features. We discussed, the insanity of this vehicle and what GM is promising it to be. So now we are going to be discussing the competition, because any car that comes out, there has to be competition. Even if the competition is not directly in the same price bracket or whatever, but there is competition, and if there's not competition, there will soon be competition. So, who's competing against the Hummer EV? As you can probably guess, the only other electric pickup truck out there that has been announced is Tesla's Cybertruck. Yes, we're talking about that hideous Cybertruck that looks like it was designed by a 5-year-old in art class. I'm sorry, I hate it. It's ugly. It's not, wow. I already have beef with Elon Musk and Tesla anyway, because I think he's just a rich kid that has too much money and doesn't know what to do with it. And he's got too many irons in the fire. But now you got this hideous, hunk of crap. I mean, like, come on, man. Just come on. Like, the thing is literally triangular. Like, it slopes all the way up, comes to a point, and slopes all the way down. It's wow. Anyways, this is about the Hummer EV, not about the Tesla Cybertruck. So moving on. Hummer comes in 4 trim levels. And the reason why I am explaining the 4 trim levels here is just so you can see how it matches up against the Cybertruck, because the Cybertruck comes in 3 trim levels. So let me just, entertain you for a little bit. The Hummer EV2 which is the base model, is actually not going to be available on the market until spring of 2024. And they are doing this, I believe, on purpose, so that the most expensive model is the one that comes out first, and then the least expensive model is the one that comes out last. So the Hummer EV2 will start at $79,995, so about $80,000. And then it's going to have 2 electric motors. It's going to have an approximately 250 plus mile range, and it's going to have approximately 625 horsepower and 7,400 pound-feet of torque. Like I said, ridiculous numbers. Even the 7,400 pound-feet of torque. When I saw that, I was not nearly as desensitized as when I saw 11,500 feet. But if I had seen this first, goodness, I would have had the same reaction. But now that I know 11,500 feet is possible, 7,500 feet doesn't impress me as much. I know that's bad. I shouldn't think about that. I shouldn't think about it that way, but that's how it is. Okay, so you got, after that, the Hummer EV2X, which starts out at $89,995. This one has a 300 plus mile range, and it has the same powertrain as the EV2, except this one has a slightly better range. Then you've got the Hummer EV3X. This one starts at $99,995. It has 3 motors, 300 plus mile range, and it has 800 horsepower plus 9,500 pound-feet of torque. So this one has a better power output than the 2 previous ones. Then you've got the Hummer EV Edition 1. That's the one that's going to be available a year from now in fall of 2021. It has that doesn't have 112,000. It costs $112,595. It has 3 motors, and it has 350 plus mile range, 1,000 horsepower, and 11,500 pound-feet of torque. So when I was freaking out about the 11,500 feet of torque, this was the one I was freaking out about. So let's just see how popular this is. And we haven't even gotten to the competition just yet. Reservations are full for the EV Edition 1, available next fall. GM announced this literally last week. Last week alone. And the reservations are already full for it. That means if you slacked off and you wanted one of these, you can't get one now. You're going to have to wait until they become more available before you pre-order one. Or you're going to have to wait until after they've already come out for next year before you order one. This is how popular this thing is going to be. I mean, this is insane. Like, I know the Bronco probably sold out, and I know the CA Corvette probably sold out, but those are not electric vehicles. Those are not electric vehicles. I mean, far and wide, automobile drivers are purists. I mean, and I'm not talking about purists that means every car should have a manual transmission and automatic should be dead, blah, blah, blah. But most people, by purists, I mean they stick with what they're familiar with. You're going to have people who are shopping for new vehicles. The average person is not going to be looking for your Tesla. Even though the Teslas have become relatively affordable these days, your average person is not going to be looking for a Tesla or a Chevy Volt or a Cadillac ELR or a Chevy Bolt or any other number of electric vehicles on the market, Nissan Leaf, blah, 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 all those other ones. Your average person is not going to be buying those because they are not familiar with them. To them, they fear. They fear in terms of reliability. They fear in terms of parts availability. They term in fear of long-term usability when it comes to electric vehicles. So, that being said, the fact that an electric vehicle has been announced and it's already sold out before it even sold, it's already not available for reservations anymore. That's promising. That means to tell me and to tell you that many people are moving away from being just traditional gas-powered vehicle drivers to experimenting with electric vehicles. And that's a very good thing for GM. That's a very good thing for all the other car companies out there who have dipped their toes into the electric vehicle water, but who haven't fully dunked themselves in. This is a problem, however, for Elon Musk. Because just as I said, a long time ago when Tesla first started making cars, besides the Roadster, of course, I had said Tesla's enjoying his little, pedestal right now as he's the maker of the most electric cars, goodness. But once the other big three companies start knocking down his door and start actually producing electric vehicles, Tesla's going to start packing his bags because he's a boutique company. He's a boutique company. Therefore, he doesn't have the resources that the other ones have. Because Tesla, himself, Elon Musk, the guy who owns Tesla, he's got so many different things that he's doing. He hasn't been able to choose one thing and just focus on it. He's got this space explorationist, he's got this Tesla, he's got that, he's got this. He needs to just choose something and put his mind to it and make it the most perfect. Even today, Tesla still has quality issues. Teslas still have quality issues. So, I'm not saying that other car manufacturers don't have quality issues, but other manufacturers are more capable of producing cars on a proper mass-produced level with proper quality control because they are actual car companies, not a company that happens to produce cars, but they are dedicated car companies. That being said, once GM, Ford, and yes, I'm going to say Chrysler because Jeep is doing pretty darn well. Once they start coming out with electric vehicles and the people who are already loyal to those brands start seeing what they can do, knowing that they will be more reliable than Tesla and have better quality control than Tesla, I can't say he's going to go out of business because I can't predict the future. But Tesla's going to have to start packing his bags. He's going to have to start doing something else. He's going to have to step up his game. Right now, he's taking advantage of the fact that the automotive the electric automotive world right now is a desert. He's the only one, really, besides a couple of other models from some of the bigger companies. But once they start coming out with things to directly compete against Tesla, he doesn't stand a chance. And the Hummer EV is exactly what I was talking about. I didn't know it was going to be exactly what I was talking about. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. Elon Musk thought he was being all crazy. Oh, electric pickup truck. And GM's like, honey, sit down. I've been doing this for almost 100 years. I know what I'm doing. And then, boom, GM comes back with the Hummer EV. Elon Musk, if you're listening to this, sweetheart, pack your bags because your Cybertruck cannot hold a candle to the Hummer EV. Maybe it's not supposed to, but if you want something that's going to compete against this, you might have to beef up your Cybertruck game a little bit. I'm just saying. So, get this. The Cybertruck, according to Tesla, has better utility than a truck with more performance than a sports car. All right. The exoskeleton that is nearly impenetrable is what this thing is made out of. So it's like 30 gauge cold rolled steel, something like that. I mean, it's supposed to be nearly impossible to break. And there's armor glass. So it's armored. I will give you that. It has adaptive air suspension. It has a towing capacity of up to 14,000 pounds. It does 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. That's the top of the line model, however. And the top of the line model has approximately 500 miles of range. That's really impressive. Now, it comes in 3 trims. The single motor rear wheel drive model has a 250 mile range and does 0 to 60 in about 6.5 seconds. The dual motor all-wheel drive model, which is the mid-range model, if you will, has a 300-mile range, and it has 0 to 60 in approximately 4.5 seconds. The tri-motor all-wheel drive has about 500 miles worth of driving range and does 0 to 60 in about 2.9 seconds. And $39,900 is the starting price. Now, you all may be hearing that out there. You're like, wow, there's such a big price disparity. And here's what I have rationalized it to. It seems to me that the Hummer and the Cybertruck are the only electric pickup trucks, but they are two different price brackets. And the Hummer is clearly the more capable all-around vehicle. Hummer is left offering an electric alternative to the likes of the top-level Bronco and Jeeps and Raptors, also from Ford. And the Cybertruck is left offering an electric alternative to the likes of the F-150 and the Sierra/Silverado, which are basically the same vehicle, and Ram, as well as Titan and Tundra. So you've got the Hummer EV that is really competing against the insane sorts of vehicles. And what I mean by the insane sorts of vehicles, I'm talking about your Raptors, I'm talking about your Jeep Wranglers, the ones who, the ones whose trim levels I can't even remember, the ones that are like beefed up to the max from the factory. And I'm talking about, your Bronco Black Editions or whatever they're going to call the top of the line Bronco. So I'm talking about those extreme off-roading vehicles. That's what the Hummer is left competing against. The Cybertruck is left competing against your regular, everyday, tame, full-size pickup truck. The ones that you're going to use for towing, the ones that you're going to use for hauling. You're not going to use your Hummer EV for towing. Not to say that it can't tow, but you're not going to use it for that. You're going to use it for off-roading. Not to say that you're not going to use it for hauling. You can, but that's not what it's going to be used for. It's going to be used for, again, off-roading. So, perhaps it's not a completely fair comparison. But this, prompts you to realize that, hey, Hummer, or GMC in this case, or GM, the parent company, however you want to refer to it as, doesn't really have a competition for this vehicle. And I will tell you in the next segment why that could be a very good thing. So please stay tuned after the break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right. Typically, in segment 3, I would discuss, basically the history of the vehicle. But we don't need to know about the history of the Hummer because the history of the Hummer is relatively short. It started out as the Humvee, and then there was a civilian model, which was the Hummer H1. GM bought the company and then made, 2 smaller Hummers based off of civilian platforms. That's it. I mean, from 1992, the Hummer H1 came out, to 1998 when GM bought it out from AM, and then to 2010 where it finally died. It had an 18-year history. That's about it. Okay, so moving on. In the last segment, we discussed the competition and really how the Cybertruck couldn't really hold a candle to the GM Hummer EV. So now, that being said, we have to discuss the implications. And that's what this segment's going to be about. What are the implications of this? What does this mean exactly? So, this is wonderful for GM. There are virtually no rivals. They have created a new segment. When was the last time we saw any sort of car manufacturer create a new segment? Like a new segment of vehicle that has never been before seen. I mean, like, the crossover is just an evolution of the SUV. The SUV had been around since probably the days of the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, way back in the day. All right. The wagon, the station wagon has been around for ages, depending on, descending from the depot hacks back in the days. What else can we think of? The personal luxury car was, I can say with great confidence, invented by Ford with the Thunderbird. And that's about it. I mean, as far as the segments that we can think of, I believe the personal luxury car was probably the newest segment created by an off-road, not an off-road, but created by a car manufacturing company. The newest car segment created by a company. It's probably the personal luxury car. I mean, they tried to create convertible SUVs, but once again, that's just an evolution of the SUV. It's not an entirely new segment. So this segment of what they now call a supertruck, no one has done that before. No one has come out with an all-electric supertruck. Tesla has/will have an electric pickup, but it's not on the same plane as this. Hummer will blow it out of the water. Like I said, this is the perfect example that confirms my feelings about Tesla versus other car companies. Once the big three catch up in the EV game, Tesla is going to be in trouble. Now let's just look a little bit more into the history of Hummer. Hummer was killed off in 2010 due to terrible fuel economy and criticism to GM from environmentalists. Now, yeah, I'm not a huge environmentalist, but man, were Hummers ridiculous. Like I said, the H1 was grotesque. I mean, like, we have several cars or several SUVs, I can say, on the car market today that were based in military vehicles. There's a good list of them. I mean, like, maybe not all of them are available for the North American market, so you're not going to see them on American roads, but there's a good list of them. The Jeep Wrangler, based in a military vehicle. The Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, based on a military vehicle. The old Volkswagen Thing, actually, based on a military vehicle. The Mercedes-Benz Unimog, that's based on a military vehicle. So many vehicles we have out there are based on military vehicles. The Hummer was also based on a military vehicle. However, all of those were based on military vehicles that weren't as heavy duty, that weren't as grotesque, that weren't as, however you want to describe it as this. The Hummer H1 was like a straight up Humvee built for road use. There was not much mechanical difference between it and a Humvee. Now imagine driving this in your suburban roads. It's ridiculous. Like, it shouldn't exist. It really shouldn't. I mean, it's large. It's almost scary. I mean, no. And the thing is, like, 6 miles to the gallon. I mean, like, I don't even care how much it actually got. It was, just no. The H2 was just embarrassing. The H2 was in the sense that, well, you couldn't afford the H1 or the H1 Alpha, so you cheaped out and you got an H2. But the H2 was not nearly as pure, I guess. Like, if you're going to get a Hummer, get the H1 because it's a real Hummer. The H2 were for the people who wanted the appearance of a Hummer, who wanted the obnoxiousness of a Hummer, but couldn't afford a real Hummer, so they got the H2. I mean, that's almost even sadder than the H1, because, like, if you have that type of money and you're going to throw it away, at least throw it away on something worthwhile, not a fancied-up GM truck platform. And then the H3, I mean, like, The H3 was probably the most tame and the most sensible of them all, but probably didn't sell as well because you barely see H3s. I mean, the most common Hummer is probably the H2. But then, frankly, these days, you almost never see Hummers at all. You see Hummers, and you're like, wow, that's a Hummer. Like, it turns heads. Hummers are not very common anymore. There was a time that everybody had a Hummer. You know, all the celebrities had them, blah, blah, blah. I mean, those are the people who can afford to waste that copious amount of money putting gas in these thirsty behemoths. But it was just embarrassing. But now, Hummer has come back. The environmentalists can no longer complain. It is zero emissions. It has a 250 to 350 mile driving range. It is super capable and responsive as far as performance goes. And this is the one vehicle that has been revived that is undoubtedly better than the original that came before it. There is no question about it. The new Hummer EV is better in every single aspect than the original Hummer. I don't care what anybody says. Because frankly, the Hummer is a vehicle that should have never existed to begin with. Civilians do not need military-grade vehicles. The Jeep is a different story because the Jeep was not used as like a tank. The Jeep was used as like cheap, versatile transportation in the field. But this was not an armored vehicle that was used as a tank. The Humvee was one step below a tank. I mean, like, Humvees could deflect bombs, could do this, could do... A Jeep could never do that. A Jeep was a lot more tame from the very beginning, from its very origins, than a Humvee. A Humvee should have never made it to civilian roads. It doesn't need it. People don't need that. No. People don't need it. It's ridiculous. But now we've got a sensible Hummer. We've got the same look and even more off-road capability. And now you have it in a practical platform because it's not sucking fuel every time you even think about pressing the accelerator. This thing doesn't use fuel. It's 100% electric. There are no emissions. It's not going to cost you anything. It's like if you own a Hummer, you know you have a gas bill every month. It's not like you're just casually putting gas in your car. No, you got to have to plan when you're going to put gas in your car, when gas is going to be the cheapest, when you're going to get the most bang for your buck, where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. I mean, like, you got to plan if you are daily driving a Hummer, when you're going to put gas in this thing. Because you know, once you put gas in it, you are committing. You are committing to probably $60, $70, maybe even $80 per fill-up. Like, I used to drive a Cadillac DeVille, and at the time, where gas was expensive, this thing had a 20-gallon tank and only took premium fuel. It would take nearly $70 to fill it up. And that was a four-door sedan. Granted, it was a Cadillac sedan, 17 and a half feet long, and about 4,000 pounds. But it's dwarfed in comparison to a Hummer. And that thing took about $65 to $70 worth of fuel just to fill it up. I can't begin to imagine what owning a Hummer H1 would have been like, especially during the days of the fuel crisis. And not the fuel crisis as in like the 73 fuel crisis. I'm talking about like the economic recession that we had, in which gas prices went up and people were starting to shy away from these thirsty monsters. So now that you've got it in electrical form, nobody can really complain. I mean, and this is what is so revolutionary about it. These are the implications. The implications are that this is making this segment seem more viable now. This full-size, off-roading segment, if you will, this supertruck category. This is what people want. If you've seen the trends in the car world lately, the trends in the car world are all leaning the same way, man. Everybody's leaning away from four-door passenger sedans. They're leaning more towards crossovers, more towards trucks, more towards full-size SUVs. People don't want, small cars anymore. People don't want station wagons. I mean, there's some vehicles, there's some car companies that are holding out with the station wagon. Buick brought over like an Opel from Europe and rebadged it as a Buick over here and, lifted it slightly and put some, off-road cladding on it to make it seem more rugged and tried to sell it like as an alternative to the Subaru Outback. That's not working. I mean, like, nobody even wants, station wagons anymore. People want genuine SUVs or crossovers. And this is where GM is going. And this is why I believe they came out with the Hummer EV when they did. They could have come out with it a few years ago. They waited until it was the opportune time to send it into the world. And boy, am I proud of GM. I have been a GM lover since I started driving. Since before I started driving. I have been a GM lover. My dad's first car was a GM product. He had an Oldsmobile Cutlass Cruiser wagon. My first car was a GM product. A Cadillac DeVille. My brother's first car was a GM product, another Cadillac DeVille. I currently drive a GM product, a Buick Park Avenue. I am GM 100% all the way till the day I die. Goodness, I will die on this hill. And the fact that my preferred car company has been making me so proud lately, making the mid-engine Corvette and now coming out with the Hummer EV as a super truck that's going to blow Tesla out of the water. Man, whoever is the executive of GM, whoever's the CEO, bro, I'm giving you a virtual high five. Like, you go, dude. Like, you keep on going. Like, make GM into what GM has always needed to be. Into the all-around encompassing car company. You can get luxury, you can get performance, you can get off-road, and you can get anything you want. And I am super proud. Now, what will the others do? Because, of course, we have to mention what this is going to mean. Whenever somebody comes with something that's new and hot, you know there's going to be competition. So, I don't think we're going to have competition for a while, though. Because think of it this way. Ford is focusing on the new Bronco. Ford has done something amazing and come out with the new Bronco. And I think that's very smart because Jeep needed some competition in that segment. They needed some real competition in that segment. Something to, chip away at the Jeep crowd. Jeep has not revealed any plans in the EV world. Perhaps Jeep should come out with a Jeep Hurricane, just like they had a concept car, the Hurricane. So maybe Jeep should come out with the Jeep Hurricane and make it an electrical vehicle to combat Hummer. Who knows? We don't know. But knowing that Jeep is owned by Chrysler, I mean, Chrysler has already surprised us all by announcing the return of the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. I don't know if they have the resources. I don't know if they have the time. I don't even know if they have the smarts, honestly, to come out with a Jeep Hurricane and make it an electrical vehicle as well. So I'm not, putting my eggs in that basket, so to speak. And we have heard nothing from Japan, nothing from Nissan, Toyota, or Honda, or Mazda concerning what we're going to do about, the Hummer EV. I mean, those are not people that you think typically compete against Hummer. Mazda doesn't have pickup trucks anymore, and the Mazda pickup trucks that they used to have were basically just rebadged Ford Rangers. Honda's Ridgeline, that's a Honda Ridgeline. That's in a class of its own, frankly. It's an oversized El Camino. You got the Nissan Titan. Nissan quality has been going down anyway. Nissan's lineup is hopelessly antiquated, so I doubt that they're going to be coming out with anything new and interesting soon in this segment. And plus, they're focusing on the 400Z. And then you got Toyota. Toyota's focusing on the new Supra. Toyota might do something that's, crazy like this because Toyota's the most promising Japanese company, but they haven't even said anything either. Germany, you haven't heard anything from Audi, BMW, or Mercedes-Benz or Volkswagen concerning, a competition to the Hummer EV. And you haven't heard anything from South Korea. Now, there is no such thing as a South Korean pickup truck anyway, but let's just say if they were to come out with one, or something like an SUV for off-roading similar to all this, I doubt it. I mean, Hyundai does or did have an off-roading vehicle, but it was never sold in the American market. So, hey, I don't know, man. I don't know. We will find out. So stay tuned for the last segment in which I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on the Hummer EV and the grand implications that it has for the car world. So please stay tuned after the break.
Do you work in the world of marketing and advertising? Are you a media buyer or the owner of an agency? Have you been looking for a podcast to help stay on top of all the goings-on of those worlds? The GSMC Marketing News Podcast is dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning marketing and advertising. Get the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast has you covered, whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand.
Okay, welcome back, folks. So, in the last segment, we discussed the implications of the new Hummer EV. What does this mean for the car world? Okay, so now I can talk freely. What are my thoughts? So we're going to cover, 4 sections of my thoughts, if you will. My favorite features, what I don't like about it, would I purchase one, will other people like it? Okay, so moving on to my personal favorites. My favorite thing about the Hummer EV is probably the fact of how capable it is. It's not one thing in particular, it's all the capabilities. Because as you all already know, in my podcast, when I tried to answer the question, are cars becoming less reliable? Do I believe cars are becoming less reliable? Yes. But if you remember what I said in that podcast, I had said that electrical vehicles could be the hope for increased reliability in future cars. Here's the reason why. Electric vehicles don't have engines. One of your biggest sources of reliability issues in cars are engines. Some cars are known for having bad head gaskets. North Star engine, I'm looking at you. Some cars are known for having bad valve seals. BMW, I'm looking at you. Some cars are known for stripping head bolts. AMG 12-cylinder engine, I'm looking at you. Some cars are known for having bad throttle bodies. Some other cars are known for having this bad, other this, that, this, this, that, and the other thing. However, with an electric vehicle that doesn't have an engine, you don't have to worry about head gasket. You don't have to worry about throttle body. You don't have to worry about head bolts. You don't have to worry about so many manufacturing things that can go wrong. All you have to do is slap a battery and some electric motors in there and you're good. Not to say that these things are going to be infinitely reliable and, be completely, never break down or whatnot. But there are so many things that you just simply don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about your water pump going bad in your electric motor because it doesn't have one. You don't have to worry about your head gasket being blown. You don't have to worry about, your transmission because these things don't have traditional transmissions. All of the things that are, that are a sticking point in traditional vehicles with internal combustion engines don't have to be thought about when it comes to electric vehicles. So this makes it more room for the car to be even more capable than, its counterparts, which have internal combustion engines. I think about my favorite thing about it. I think my favorite thing about it is the performance numbers. I know this is not something that people are going to be taking to the track, but I like a good performing automobile. 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, man, for the top of the line model. And then 11,500 pound-feet of torque. This is insane. This is what we need in the car world. We need something that's going to be absolutely ridiculous like this, and yet still be practical. 350 miles of range. That's, scratch that. I think that's my favorite feature, because my biggest sticking point with electric vehicles is the fact that gas vehicles are more practical because you can go for a longer amount of time. But now, on one full charge, you can go as much as your other vehicle. Yeah, it's going to take about 35 minutes to charge it, but 35 minutes is not the hours that some earlier electrical cars needed to be charged. So the fact that this exists, the fact that it's doing it, the fact that this is just amazing. It's amazing that GM is actually being able to do this. It's amazing. And that's probably my favorite thing about the Hummer EV is its capability. Its capability. There are few trucks out there that have been promised to be this capable. And will there be another one that's this capable? We're just going to have to wait and see. But frankly, to tell you the truth, I don't think so. So, moving on. What don't I like about it? There's not much that I don't like about it. I like the fact that it's made by GM. I like the fact that GM has been able to redeem the Hummer brand. Not just revive it, but redeem it. Because, Hummers before were laughable vehicles. If you had a Hummer, that's a source of embarrassment. Because you're still one of those people that's perhaps compensating for something. That's why you need such a large vehicle. But now that they've been able to redeem it, there's very few things I don't like. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. If I'm being real nitpicky, maybe the styling isn't my favorite. I always thought Hummers looked sort of awkward anyway. This one is not classically beautiful. The styling is a tad bit awkward for my tastes. It's kind of bulgy in weird spaces, but then again, it's a Hummer. Hummers have always known for being kind of bulgy, kind of awkward looking anyway. So, the fact that this is awkward looking, that's not a problem for me. The point is, it's rugged. It's not going to be classically beautiful anyway. It's not like I'm looking for, an Alfa Romeo over here. No, I'm looking at a Hummer. I know the Hummer is going to be somewhat, manly, somewhat awkward, somewhat off-roady. That's just how it is. So I'm not too concerned about that. So yeah, that's probably what I don't like. Compared to Tesla's Cybertruck, I would have liked to see them try to get 400 or at least 500 miles of range. But then again, this thing is probably a lot heavier than the Cybertruck. And, 350, man, I really can't complain. I really can't complain with that. So, would I purchase one? Like I began the podcast saying, if there is any electrical vehicle out there that I would even consider purchasing once I had the money, once I had the career, once I had everything down, it would probably be this. Not gonna lie. I'm not a truck guy. I'm not an electric vehicle guy. But if I'm going to buy one, I'm gonna buy this. It's GM. It's GM. Man, for me, it comes down to an aspect of not only capability, but brand loyalty. I'm not going to go buy something from Tesla. I don't like Tesla. I've already made up my mind. I don't like Tesla. Ford doesn't have any interesting electrical vehicles. Does Ford even have a fully electrical vehicle? I don't know. And all the other GM electrical vehicles, the Cadillac ELR was the Chevy Volt was the Chevy Bolt is but this one is not This is the least of them all. This is perfect. Man, if there were ever a perfect electrical vehicle, this would be it. This is perfect. Now, in terms of reliability, I don't know how reliable it's going to be. I know definitely it's going to be more reliable than if this were to have a gas engine. But how reliable would it be in terms of all these different features? Is the diagonal steering going to work? Are the four-wheel steerings, the wheels going to go back into place after they've done all of that? Because it's GM has had pretty good quality control. I mean, that's to say GM hasn't had its fair share of flops. Yes, it has. But what car company hasn't? GM has had its fair share of flops, but because it's GM, I can rest that before this thing starts giving problems, it's going to be a while. So I don't have to worry too much about reliability. Now, will other people like it? Yeah, I think so. If other people were able to gawk over the Tesla Cybertruck, which doesn't even hold a candle to this. Like, let's be honest. The Tesla Cybertruck, honestly, we should forget about it, frankly. We really should. Because it's not going to be that great. It's not going to be that great. And not only is it not going to be that great, people are going to finally see it in person, and they're going to realize how truly hideous it actually is. They're not going to want to drive something like that when they know that they can have a Hummer EV. Yes, the Hummer EV is more expensive, but then again, people who are buying Teslas aren't poor. They have money to throw away. So when you know you can get a Hummer EV versus the hideous Tesla Cybertruck, man, anybody in their right mind is going to get a Hummer EV. Tesla Cybertruck is not going to be able to hold a candle to this, does not currently hold a candle to it, and will never hold a candle to it. Unless Tesla comes out with like a Cybertruck Max or something, and then, tries to make it compete against this, which, honestly, at this point, I don't even care what Tesla's going to do, because that was interesting, and I'm not going to even afford having a podcast on it, because, there's all you needed to know about it in this podcast with the Tesla Cybertruck. It's not that great. The Hummer EV, though, is absolutely insane. It's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely on every single level, on every single plane, the best electric pickup truck currently being offered of the two being offered. Will other people like it? Heck yes, other people are going to like it. If people can throw copious amounts of money into Jeep, which have been proven to be unreliable since Chrysler took them over, they can throw copious amounts of money into Jeep. They can throw copious amounts of money into Tesla, and they will inevitably throw copious amounts of money into the Tesla Cybertruck. It would only make sense for them to throw copious amounts of money into the GM Hummer EV too. It only makes sense. If they can throw their money away on a Jeep, people actually do that. And the Jeep is not even reliable. You can throw your money into a Tesla, and Teslas are unproven. Now, you can throw your money away, and actually, I can't even say throw it away. You can invest your money in a proven automobile, or at least a proven car company that's coming out with a new automobile, and you can put it into something that you know is going to be more reliable than a Chrysler product. This is the most bang for your buck. Yeah, it's more expensive than Jeep. Yeah, it's more expensive than Tesla's Cybertruck. Yeah, it's more expensive than Ford's Bronco. But this is the most bang for your buck, man. Most bang for your buck. I'm convinced of it. And not to say that there's not going to be more variants of it. Remember, GM has several marks. There could be a Cadillac version that is built on a similar platform. There could be a Chevy version. There could be a GMC version. So there could be several vehicles built on this same platform. Who knows? We won't ever know. Or at least we will know, but we won't know right now. So those are basically my thoughts on the GMC Hummer EV. I love it. And GM, man, congratulations, because you have made me proud more and more than any other car company on the face of the earth currently. So thank you, GM, for not only the C8 Corvette, but thank you for bringing back the Hummer and redeeming the name. And beating Elon Musk at his own game. Goodness. Thank you so much. Yeah. So this has been the GSMC Car Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. If you like this, please leave us a like, a comment, a subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of our social media. Please tell your friends about us so they can listen to the Wonderful Car Podcast twice a week as well. And thank you so much, and have a wonderful night. Goodbye.
You've been listening to the GSMC Car Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type GSMC into your favorite podcast app to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Please subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed today's episode.